Some stories can touch your heart, pick you up, and change your life for the better. Today, I'll tell you the story of a rich kid with a good heart, whose dead grandfather is teaching him the lessons of life. It was dramatized in 2007 as The Ultimate Gift. There will be spoilers, so watch out and take care. The death of Howard "Red" Stevens dramatically paves the way. Ted Hamilton reacts calmly, as if he had prepared for this moment. He instructs his assistant, Miss Hastings, to notify Red's family and business associates. She comforts him over his loss, hinting they were very close. At the funeral, two of Red's sons are grumpy that it's raining and they seem to be present out of a sense of duty rather than grief. Feeling a tingle of hope, a little girl with a pink umbrella emerges. She feels the raindrops on her face. Her mother reprimands her lovingly, as she doesn't want her to get sick. Loud music announces an incoming car. Jason gets out and thinks he looks really cool with his sunglasses and cigarette. The little girl is glad to see him. Annoyed, his mother tells him that he is late. He only replies, "For what?" and she rolls her eyes. Hamilton enters the room and utters words of regret for the death of his business partner and also his friend. He is interrupted by the oldest of Red's sons, who waits with anticipation for him to read the will. He is delighted to receive a company worth $600 million, but his joy is abruptly interrupted when he is stripped of all say in the company's affairs. Following with his father's statement, "You have never cared for the company while I was alive, so I doubt it will be different when I'm dead." Bill is humiliated. Jason walks into the waiting room. The next in line, Stephen's daughter gets irritated about only receiving a 10,000-acre cow farm. Another one of his sons doesn't receive what he wanted to and leaves. Pleased with herself, Red's sister-in-law receives the mansion she now resides in, as well as a managed trust of lifelong expenses. Unfortunately for her, the control of the house will remain in the hands of Hamilton. Jason's about to leave, but then Hamilton calls his name. He hesitates because he is sure that his grandfather has left him nothing, but his curiosity gets the better of him. A box of envelopes appears to be his inheritance. Hamilton opens the box with the key and gets a CD out of it. Jason is super ticked off by his grandfather playing with him, even after his death. Still, he listens with interest as the recording plays and Red says he thinks Jason is the one he hurt the most. Red mentions that he has been thinking for a long time about how to make it up to Jason. Starting with, "So I decided to give you nothing." As Jason gets up ready to walk out, Red continues, "Just yet, so sit back down." His grandfather explains that he doesn't want to give him anything that will ruin him like his aunts and uncles. He laid out a series of tests for him. If he masters them, he gets the ultimate gift. However, if he fails, he gets nothing. Everything must be to Mr. Hamilton's satisfaction. Starting with a 7 a.m. flight to Texas, not knowing why. Confused and annoyed, he says, "What could he possibly give me that he hasn't already taken away?" slamming the door on his way out. At home, his girlfriend asks him about his day. Jason describes having to fly to Texas to play into his grandfather's little power trip, not knowing why. He explains that he will not be going. She asks if he isn't curious and Jason replies that he ruined his life. His best revenge is to ignore him. She argues against it, explaining that it's always good to have extra money and that he should get out of it as much as possible. Look at this bad boy arriving at the airport on his bike and being escorted by the police, so to speak, recklessly leaving the motorcycle as it is. Miss Hastings hands him his ticket and he boards the plane. Entitled as he is, he doesn't even look at the ticket and sits down in first class. "Do you know who I am?" Doesn't get him far here and he gets reseated. He is drawn into the experience of urban melodies, loud chatter, coughing and screaming babies. In Texas, he is approached by a stranger, who comments that he doesn't look like he has worked a day in his life. He casually puts his bag away and introduces himself as Gus. As they drive, Gus talks about how Red was a special man who just loved hard work. Jason is surprised when he says they've been driving on his property for the last half an hour. When they arrive at his modest home, Gus informs him that breakfast is at 5, but Jason asks where his gift is. Gus just walks away laughing while Jason says to himself, "So this is hell." Morning time arrives and Jason misses breakfast. When Jason doesn't get up, Gus electrocutes him, beaming at him. They drive out to a field where Jason is instructed on setting up fence posts. Not seeing the point in it, he lazies around and looks for a spot with a phone connection. On the next day they drive out again and he gives the fence posts a go. Despite doing a mediocre job, Jason seems pleased with himself. Gus arrives and without saying a word attaches a rope to one of the posts, tearing them all down in one swoop with his car. Balancing on a tractor, Jason finally finds a place with connection and calls his GF. Inquisitively about what the gift is, he answers vaguely saying it involves labor, land and building materials, as he doesn't know himself what he is doing. A revelation comes upon him. He figures out he may get the gift when he's finished with the task. Filled with new vigor, Jason even gets up before Gus and does his work diligently, even setting up the land posts straight this time. Gus is proud and Jason keeps on working hard for a month without a single complaint, gaining confidence in his capabilities. He even wants to keep going as Gus comes to pick him up and hands over the work to a group. As they arrive at the airport, Gus says that if he does any work like he did just now, he can do anything. Jason once again inquires about the gift, but to his disappointment, Gus just laughs and drives off. Back in Hamilton's office, Jason's outraged at having to do a month's worth of physical labor. "You telling me this was a favor? To me?" Hamilton replies, "Only a gift of work, congratulations," and leaves. Jason runs after him to calmly inquire about the gift. Showing his first sign of humility, Jason decides to apologize to Mr. Hamilton and realizes that what is in store for him might be of great benefit. Hamilton's response to the question of what the next gift might be, however, is simply, "You'll know." When he arrives at his apartment, he finds it empty and his car towed away. "You don't really get to live until you've lost everything," plays in the next recording back at Hamilton's office. Spitefully, Jason replies to Red on the tape that there wasn't a single person at his funeral who didn't have something to gain from him. His next task is to come back with one true friend by the end of the month. Taking his girlfriend out to a fancy place, he orders one of the most expensive champagnes. She thinks he's going to propose, but truly he's asking to move in with her, lying about his place getting remodeled. His credit card gets declined. Could have seen that one coming. Lying again about changing banks, he asks her if she could take care of this. She starts tearing up while saying, "You're asking me to pay the bill?" Jason's face is priceless, and his girlfriend just leaves. Reality kicks in. The true value of people who stick to you slowly washes over him. After calling up various friends, nobody wants to take him in. Even his mom refuses. Hamilton told her not to, and she might lose everything if she did. Waking up beside the pool, the maid chases him away. Disheartened, he sits down on a bench in the park, unknowingly aggroing at a homeless dude who appears to have claimed ownership of that specific bench. Jason tries to chase him away, but the homeless guy says it's a free country and he got just as much rights to it as he does. To which Jason responds, "Name one thing in this country that's free." Agreeing to toss a coin for it, neither one of them has any money. The little girl appears, lending them a quarter, though the homeless guy catches it in the air and runs away. "Are you even surprised?" She strikes up a conversation with him, saying she recognizes him from the funeral. "Emily," her mom calls out, worried, telling her off for talking to a stranger again. As she apologizes for disturbing, he replies that he isn't the one who is disturbed. Just after the little girl replies, "Some friend you are," Jason decides to go full autism and straight up asks if she wants to be his friend. When he explains that it's complicated, she replies, "It's not complicated, it's pathetic." For the whole month he goes on sleeping on the street, creeps on his girlfriend and watches her cheat on him. On his last day of the challenge, the little girl and her mom are having a picnic as the bum from earlier pesters them. He pulls him away by racing for his special bench. Jason tells them about the challenge, as well as that he can't promise them anything. Her mom, Alexia, seems reluctant but subtly charmed by him. At Hamilton's office, Emily asserts her dominance by loudly sipping on her straw, convincing them, saying she plans on knowing Jason for the rest of her life, setting Alexia to get lost in thought. Upon leaving the building, Emily tries scheduling to meet up tomorrow at their usual picnic spot. Sarcastically replying, "Sure," Jason just walks away. At Hamilton's, Red mentions that money was like air for Jason. Jason receives a paycheck for the work he did in Texas. His next task is to spend the money on someone who really needs it. At the park, he's about to give some money to his street buddy, but he runs away having rummaged in the purse of Alexia. Discovering desperately due hospital bills, Jason finds Emily has her own room in the hospital. Leaving the bag, he bumps into Alexia, only to find out Emily has leukemia. Admitting to having to give away some money, Alexia reacts defensively about him using her and her daughter to play a game. Surprising the private investigator sent by Hamilton, he tells him to pay the bill for Emily. Being $100 short, he hands it to Hamilton next time he runs into his office. Succeeding in his quest, the following assignment is to gather his family and see if they can find a bit of gratitude in themselves. As Red's doctors were accurate, it falls on Thanksgiving. Visiting Emily in the hospital church, she greets him with, "Oh, there's my best friend." Sentimentally, Emily talks about what she thinks death is going to be like, thinking of God all the time and how he has butterflies of all the colors between his fingers, losing her composure as she declares there is something basically unfair about a person dying. "I even hate the idea." Jason promises her that those arms are meant for her. She replies, simpering, "What's gonna happen to my mom?" Commenting how she wouldn't be upset if Jason kissed her, calling him dense for not sensing something between them. Emily thinks they were made for each other, even the first time they met in the park, inciting him to spend Thanksgiving with her. Alexia gets unfortunate news. Chemotherapy isn't gonna be enough for her daughter. She breaks down. Her whole world, her child, isn't going to be with them much longer. Jason sees her but is helpless due to the reality of it all. Alexia cries on his shoulder. Afterwards, they have a talk in the hospital cafe, where Alexia shares her past and how the father left because he wanted to focus on college, commenting how even through all the hardship, Emily is the best decision she ever made. Alexia thanks him as she assumes he was the one who paid her bill, and he invites her to Thanksgiving. Declining, she says she needs to be there for Emily. Later in the day, Emily notices Alexia lost in pleasant thoughts, and she shares that Jason invited her for Thanksgiving. Alexia jokingly says to Emily that she replied, "Whatever, loser," not dreaming of missing Thanksgiving with her daughter. Walking away with Jason, Alexia declares that her daughter has banished her. Having accomplished her mission, Emily heartwarmingly declares that they are made for each other. After Jason's first bus ride, Alexia is welcomed into a huge mansion and enjoys the fancy atmosphere with Jason's family, who just can't stop bickering with one another. Alexia beams at Jason when he suggests that they each say a little thanks, because after all, it's Thanksgiving. They laugh at him and one of Red's oldest sons says thanks for not having to put up with his father anymore. The question arises as to where all the inheritance has gone. Playing one of Red's tapes from the communicator that a cousin found earlier, there's an uproar. His family feels unfairly treated and wants to know what's going on. Jason leaves. He realizes what he has been a part of all his life, how out of touch and greedy everyone has become. Alexia says that he has already walked away from it. Jason acts ignorant about this and Alexia is discouraged. She leaves, saying that she'll pay him back the money for the hospital bill as soon as she can. Looking at an old picture of Hamilton's wife, he shares how she passed away early, igniting a spark in Jason. Cherish her, become the man she deserves, Hamilton says. Red has a talk about how everything will get tougher before it gets easier. The next challenge is something he wasn't prepared for. Jason needs to leave the country. Emily is upset he messed things up with her mom and says he better be back for Christmas. He flies to South America to a public library founded by his grandfather, where his father worked just before he died, a place where people share and reuse their books. The librarian shows one of his grandfather's letters and says that he proudly showed it to everyone at the time. The letter reveals that as a little boy, Jason wished for nothing more than to spend time with Red and his father. Jason always felt that his grandfather took his father away from him. After working diligently for a while, a man comes in and says that he was there the night his father died. He refuses Jason's request to take him to the crash site because he does not want to risk his life. They have a celebration in honor of Red, the founder of the library. Jason gets a glimpse of how much this library means to people and feels a little connected to his father. This quenches some of the bitterness in him. The next morning, Jason sets out to find his father's crash site, and it turns out that the man hid in the back of the Jeep, expecting him to leave. He promised his grandfather he would help Jason learn the truth. Jason was told a lie about how his father died trying to save a village, when the truth is, he died of boredom and looking for excitement. From his impulsiveness, Red tried to protect Jason from that. Suddenly a group of men appears and surround them. They claim that they are holding the Americans for ransom and will kill them after a few weeks if no one responds. As they burn the books and laugh, Jason loses all hope in these people. But seriously, who burns books? Time passes and Jason spends his time getting taught a little Spanish. They are taken out of their cage. Frightened, certain to meet their fate. The group of men shoot their guns in the air proclaiming Merry Christmas, announcing that tomorrow they'll die. Maxing out in luck, someone sloppily closes the door on Jason. He sneaks out and frees his friend. They run for their lives and manage to survive. At the airport, Alexia hugs him. She and Emily have been very worried all this time. When he promises her that they'll have a Christmas together next year, Alexia replies that there won't be a next year. Jason is confronted with the harsh reality of what grief over life and death truly means. What does money really matter when you can't protect the ones you love from harm? As Jason rummages through old letters, he is confronted with the grief of his grandfather. How a parent shouldn't have to witness the death of his child while he cries. How he has always blamed himself for making Jason's father work for him. Ultimately, these tests seem to be a lesson in humanity and empathy. Jason visits Emily in the hospital, who looks quite pale. She greets him with a welcome back stranger and roasts his gift from the airport shop. She's weak and disheartened, sad that he wasn't back for Christmas. After giving her a peck on the cheek, he says he missed her too. Emily expresses how she wants to have a Christmas, to ride a horse. Just as he's about to say he needs some time, she interrupts him. In a weak voice, she says no. He calls Mr. Hamilton to request a private jet. At the moment he's about to refuse, Miss Hastings interferes and allows it. They fly to Texas, where Gus lights up the house with Christmas lights. Emily's eyes light up because that's exactly the feeling she's been wanting. As Jason holds Alexia in his arms, he shares Emily's desire to go horseback riding with her. Alexia begins to sob. She reveals to him that this is actually her dream, not Emily's. Emily is terrified of horses. The next day, they all go horseback riding together. Jason gets off the horse with Alexia and says that he has to do something for Emily. He kisses Alexia. Emily and Gus beam at them as their unusual love story blossoms. In the next recording, Red encourages him to dream, and to act on it. That evening, Jason asks what Emily's dream is. She replies that her dream was a perfect day and that she is just finishing it. To be with people she loves, who love each other and who love her. Starting to cry, Jason carries her into the house. Inside, Jason shares that he doesn't know what his dream is, that he just wanted to have fun until now. Emily lifts his spirits by saying that he gave her her dream. She adds that Jason would still be a big winner with Alexia, even if he has nothing else. Jason gives a speech in Hamilton's office about how he has drifted through life so far and that from now on he wants to help others achieve their dreams. At Red Stevens' request, for now Jason is given $100 million to do with as he pleases. When he is a little confused because he does not feel what he expected, Miss Hamilton says, "That's because now, you are a different man." From then on, Jason works diligently to make his vision a reality. Jason presents his idea for a dwelling where families can live together while receiving medical care. Needing $350 million as an initial investment, he offers the first 100 of his own. When he is interrupted, he makes his idea not a request, but a demand. On the grounds that this is roughly what they earned in a year from his grandfather, Hamilton supports Jason's idea. After receiving a call, Alexia hastily leaves the room in the middle of the meeting. Jason goes after her and hears her sobbing in Emily's room. She's gone. Battling to regain his composure, he goes to Alexia. All she musters is that Emily wanted Alexia to be at Jason's meeting, it was important to her. In their grief, they both cry their eyes out at the church Emily used to go to. In her memory they open Emily's home. Together with the mayor they initiated the health center. The private investigator leaves a tape of illegal activities Jason performed to get the rest of $100 for Emily's hospital bill. This makes him ineligible to pass the rest of the tests. Jason cannot help himself and just smiles at this. Having made a tape for the case, Jason gave all of his money away. His grandfather expresses how proud he is of the fact that he acted beyond the limits of the tests. He says that his spirit will live on through him. As the recording ends, he immediately responds with "I love you too." Mr. Hamilton begins reading a paper that transfers all of Red Stevens' assets to Jason worth $2 billion. Jason is stunned and can hardly believe what he's hearing. Mr. Hamilton reminisces about Red and says he is going to retire. He tells Hastelings to work with Jason to change the world, just like he once did with Red. Jason has found so much forgiveness and humanity in himself, by understanding the hardships of the people around him, by being confronted with situations that made him really question his values. At the same time, he developed a sense of agency and intuition. Strangely enough, this is exactly what the initiation rites were meant for in the history of mankind. Now he is ready to take on the world, together with Alexia. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this.